All right, so we're gonna go through some frequently asked questions from the comments. I'm hoping I can knock out a bunch of really popular questions, help a bunch of people at the same time. So the first question is about SB9. Somebody wants to know how to tell if they're an urban area, because that's one of the eligibility requirements. There's 2 links in the description below based on the 2010 census and its update. We'll have to change these links for the 2020 data. But broadly, it's almost every neighborhood you could imagine. Even suburbs are urban areas in the census. And it's only areas like Joshua Tree or whatever, where you kind of get, if you live in one of these areas, you usually know. But yeah, good question. Links in the description below. Do I handle the 626 in SoCal? Like Ludacris, I got homes in different area codes. Is that okay? Can I say that still? I think it's okay because I changed the one word. But basically, I'm not a builder or an architect, so I don't need to be quite as regionally focused. I can address broader questions. You always do want people who know what they're doing in your jurisdiction, but I'm kind of a state rules guy, so I can help everybody. And when I don't know, I just tell you I don't know, because nobody knows everything. So good question. Yes, I do handle business in SoCal and all over the state of California and all over the country, but I will be very honest about what I know and what I do not know, because honesty is the best policy. When I do not know something, I will refer you to another person, or I will work really hard to look it up and I will charge you for it. That's kind of how it rolls. A lot of nice comments. Those aren't questions. That's just great to hear. Thank you. Always leave nice comments. Feel free to leave a nice comment or a mean comment right now while I'm scrolling. What's the best way to get funding for an ADU? Generational wealth. No, sorry, that's... You cannot choose your parents or your privilege. Best ways for normal people to get funding for an ADU. I can't give financial advice, but most of my clients either do a cash out refi, so their existing loan. That's great if you already have paid off a lot of the loan, you want to take some equity back out of the house at today's interest rates before all these interest hikes go in. That could be a good option. If you have a really favorable rate and you don't want to change the current mortgage, then that's not a great option. Or if you don't have a lot of equity, that's not a great option. 2, the other really popular bucket is HELOCs or second mortgages, just taking out another loan on the house. Again, you need some equity, but that doesn't affect the metrics of the first loan, so that might be interesting. And then the third is a big bucket, but it's some combination of a 2-part loan. You do a construction loan or a rehab loan, or some people use hard money, which I wouldn't advise unless you know what you're doing. But you do one loan to begin with. Maybe your interest rate isn't so great, but the idea is you finish the project as quickly as possible, you use that money, and then once the ADU is finished, you go back and refinance and do a takeout loan that covers, that way you can pay off the construction loan completely, you can pay off this temporary loan completely, and then it's one big loan package again. That's usually an option for people who don't have equity, but they know that they can finish the project on budget and on time. So those are kind of the 3 most popular ways. There's a link to a financial guide in the description below. I helped write a part of it. It's a product of the Casita Coalition. I was on the finance subcommittee, so we did a finance guide, and you can read that, and it's really good. On the cost calculators, when they say soft costs include architect and engineering fees, is that it? Are there any other items that fall under soft costs? That's a good question, because soft costs sounds like one of those meaningless new age sayings. So different calculators use different assumptions for the hard costs and soft costs. But basically, most people that I run into, when they say soft costs, it includes surveyors, it includes geotechs and other types of engineers, it can include design fees, it can include any of the detail sheets that appear in your blueprints. Like if you get an architect or a drafter who assembles a team, they'll get all this information for you and you'll just pay that architecture fee maybe. But they might also split out the costs and say, oh, well, there's an electrical design fee and there's like a roofing fee. There's an irrigation draining report, HVAC design, like all of these, each of these costs will appear on each person's bill, but they're all examples of soft costs. So if they got itemized, they would get lumped into soft costs. How does SB9 apply to public improvements like sidewalks? My entire street is in the city, but no one has sidewalks in front of their homes. Can the city make me purchase sidewalks for the future with a bond? So that's a great question. SB9 specifically says that the local agency, the city or county, cannot require off-site improvements as a condition of the split. They can require on-site improvements. So they could require you to do a sidewalk on your lot if your lot needs a sidewalk there. So they might be able to require you to build a sidewalk on your lot, but they cannot make you build a sidewalk on the entire street. Another common one is, I think, buried utilities. And so sometimes the city will say, yeah, we'll let you build, but you got to bring the utilities from down here all the way up to your address. And, while we're at it, it would be better if they were buried underground than run above ground, stuff like that. Those kinds of offsite improvements are not something that the city can require with SB9. On a normal subdivision, with the Subdivision Maps Act, they can require that stuff. Somebody asked, can I use SB9 and SB330 if I live in an unincorporated area? So there's a lot of eligibility requirements on SB9. One of them we talked about at the top of this video. It's to check if it's an urban lot. And so sometimes unincorporated areas will not be urban designated areas, and that would make you SB9 ineligible. SB330 you can use as long as your project includes at least one unit of housing or more. So that's two different questions. Tricky. How long does it take to split a lot in Los Angeles? So typically what I've seen is the LA County takes easily 12 to 18 months to split a lot with the conventional lot split. SB9 subdivisions should have fewer requirements, like they can't go through a public hearing phase. So normally you would imagine that shortens the timeline, but we won't know until we actually see them processing applications how short the timeline actually gets. So far, I know people who've submitted like week 1 in January, and they haven't gotten theirs yet. That wasn't in LA County though, that was in the South Bay, but still, it's taking months. Somebody asked, is building an ADU really lucrative? Numbers wise, it seems very expensive, and my neighbor currently has a renter nightmare on his hands. I'm still debating whether to build an ADU. Honestly, if you're just trying to find a way to invest money into becoming a landlord, you could buy existing real estate and rent it out. An ADU is just one way to invest money, and it's a specific way to develop a property you already own, where the cost of land is low, but the cost of the project is relatively high. Most people, when they want to become landlords, don't go out and build a house. They find a house that's already built or a multiplex, and they rent out that existing thing. The cost of capital during construction and all the things that can go wrong and all the things you have to learn to become a builder are different than the things you need to know to become a landlord. And so ADUs are really peculiar in that they give you the opportunity to wear both hats, builder hat and renter landlord hat. But if you look at the commercial real estate market, but most people who develop properties aren't also landlords. They develop things and then they sell them to professional landlords. So it's a really interesting question. If you're really looking for the most effective ways to invest money, it's often not going to be an accessory dwelling unit. It just depends on your lot, your project. If you're looking for a way to live on your property, build yourself a forever home, if you're looking for a way to create housing security for yourself so that you can stay in place or that your family can grow or that kids can move back from college or so that you can avoid assisted living facilities for a senior in your family, all of those are great reasons to have an ADU. If you're thinking about it as a pure real estate investment, ADUs can pencil and they can not pencil. It just depends on the project. If you want to binge watch a bunch of Q&As like this, I have a big playlist of short Q&As. You can just plow right through and become a little ADU expert.